So in these passages, I don't think the Buddha's talking about sitting in heaven, watching and knowing us. I think what he's really indicating is the dissolution of our rigid ways of seeing self, other, self, Buddha, Bodhisattva, Buddha. And I think this is the case, is brought out in the final passages of this section. Having said all these things, which seems to be the language of faith and devotion, the Buddha then does one of his and whys, the and whys of the Diamond Sutra. He does one of his and why. He gives his explanation of why there will be beings in the future who will understand, who will have serene faith, and who are known by him. And why? Because, Subhuti, in these bodhisattvas, no perception of a self takes place, no perception of a being, no perception of a soul, no perception of a person, nor do these bodhisattvas have a perception of a dharma or a perception of a no-dharma. No perception or non-perception takes place in them. So these terms, I think, are listed to, first of all, to aid in meditation. All those different terms used are getting you to look in detail at notions of self, being, soul, life force, person. You have various meditations where you kind of analyse the constituent elements of yourself, of others. Meditate on the 5 skandhas that comprise the psychophysical personality, or the 6 elements. It's a very popular meditation in our own order. You look at all the elements, earth, water, fire, air, space, consciousness, that make up your experience. You sort of analyse this very crude notion of a self. You break that down, actually trying to search for something lasting, permanent and separate from others, separate from outside. Of course, you keep going, you don't find anything. The Buddha goes further because he talks about the Bodhisattva doesn't have perception of a dharma. Dharma here is not the dharma in the sense of the teaching. It's a technical term taken particularly from the Abhidharma literature. And what it's really referring to here are the ideas, the notions that you use to break down that notion of a fixed self. So notions like skandhas, the elements that make up your psychophysical being. You can break, those things are ideas, are dharmas that break down your experience. But you can keep breaking those down and breaking those down until you, where do you arrive? Sangharakshita's tried to evoke what can happen with this kind of meditation in his survey of Buddhism. He likens this kind of meditation on breaking down the constituents of separate selfhood and personality to a bit like looking at a pointillist cartoon. Imagine a cartoon of a sura painting, just made up of dots interacting. Far away, it looks like a moving scene of living beings and so on. Nearby, it's just these dots and flashes of colour. But that's not the end. You shouldn't take the notion of dharmas literally. It's a method, a means. The experience of transcending self and other isn't about being able to list off all the elements and all the processes going on. It's actually beyond words, beyond any notion whatsoever. So in Mahayana Buddhism, you talk about not just the emptiness of persons, dharma, pudgala nairatmya, selflessness of persons. You talk about dharma nairatmya, the selflessness of dharmas, of all things. Sarva dharmaha shunyata lakshana, all dharmas, all things whatsoever are marked by emptiness. Even that could be misunderstood. We turn not perceiving a self not perceiving a dharma, into a thing. We regard it as nothing. That's where you end up with nihilism, that nothing really exists. Well, that's an idea, that's a notion, that's a thing too, a dharma. So the Buddha says, nor a perception of a no dharma. The Buddha negates negation. There's no perception or non-perception in a bodhisattva. All positions are refuted. All stances are dissolved. All assertions are turned over. Even negation is negated. And, well, here we really are, suddenly find ourselves like in those cartoons. We've run over the edge of the cliff. Our feet are still moving, but there's just space below.